This is a Librivox recording. All Librivox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recorded by Nathan Jordan. Ulysses by James Joyce. Part 2, The Odyssey. Episode 8, Lestrygonians. Part 1. Pineapple Rock, Lemon Plat, Butterscotch. A sugar-sticky girl shoveling scoopfuls of creams for a Christian brother. Some school treat, bad for their tummies. Lozenge and comfit manufacturer to His Majesty the King. God save our. Sitting on his throne sucking red jujubes white. A somber YMCA young man, watchful among the warm, sweet fumes of Graham lemons, placed a throwaway in a hand of Mr. Bloom. Heart-to-heart talks. Blue? Me? No. Blood of the Lamb. His slow feet walked him riverward, reading, Are you saved? All are washed in the blood of the Lamb. God wants blood victim, birth, hymen, martyr, war, foundation of a building, sacrifice, kidney burnt offering, druids' altars, Elijah is coming. Dr. John Alexander Dowie, restorer of the Church in Zion, is coming. Is coming! Is coming! Is coming! All heartily welcome. Paying game. Tory and Alexander last year. Polygamy. His wife will put the stopper on that. Where was that ad, some Birmingham firm? The luminous crucifix, our Savior. Wake up in the dead of night and see him on the wall, hanging. Pepper's ghost idea. Iron nails ran in. Phosphorus, it must be done with. If you leave a bit of codfish, for instance, I could see the bluey silver over it. Night, I went down to the pantry in the kitchen. Don't like all the smells in it waiting to rush out. What was it she wanted? The Malaga raisins? Thinking of Spain, before Rudy was born, the phosphorescence, that bluey, greeny, very good for the brain. From Butler's Monument House corner he glanced along Bachelor's Walk. Dedalus' daughter there still outside Dillon's auction rooms. Must be selling off some old furniture. Knew her eyes at once from the father. Lobbing about, waiting for him. Home always breaks up when the mother goes. 15 children he had. Birth every year almost. That's in their theology, where the priest won't give the poor woman the confession, the absolution. Increase and multiply. Did you ever hear such an idea? Eat you out of house and home. No families themselves to feed. Living on the fat of the land. Their butteries and larders. I'd like to see them do the black fast Yom Kippur. Cross buns. One meal and a collation for fear he'd collapse on the altar. A housekeeper of one of those fellows, if you could pick it out of her. Never pick it out of her. Like getting LSD out of him. Does himself well, no guess, all for number 1, watching his water. Bring your own bread and butter, his reverence mum's the word. Good Lord, that poor child's dress is in flitters. Underfed she looks too. Potatoes and Marge, Marge and potatoes. It's after they feel it. Proof of the pudding. Undermines the Constitution. As he set foot on O'Connell Bridge, a puffball of smoke plumed up from the parapet. Brewery barge with export stout. England. Sea air sours it, I heard. Be interesting some day, get a pass through Hancock to see the brewery. Regular world in itself. Vats of porter wonderful. Rats get in too. Drink themselves bloated as big as a collie floating. Dead drunk on the porter. Drink till they puke again like Christians. Imagine drinking that. Rats, that's. Well, of course, if we knew all the things. Looking down, he saw flapping strongly, wheeling between the gaunt quay walls, gulls. Rough weather outside. If I threw myself down? Reuben J's son must have swallowed a good bellyful of that sewage. 1 and 8 too much. It's the droll way he comes out with the things. Knows how to tell a story, too. They wheeled lower, looking for grub. Wait. He threw down among them a crumpled paper ball. Elijah, 32 feet per sec, is calm. Not a bit. The ball bobbed unheeded on the wake of swells, floated under by the bridge piers. Not such damn fools. Also, the day I threw that stale cake out of the Aaron Kings, picked it up in the wake 50 yards astern. Live by their wits. They wheeled, flapping. The hungry famished gull flaps o'er the waters dull. That is how poets write, the similar sounds. But then Shakespeare has no rhymes, blank verse. The flow of the language it is, the thoughts, solemn. Hamlet, I am thy father's spirit, doomed for a certain time to walk the earth. 2 apples a penny, 2 for a penny. His gaze passed over the glazed apples serried on her stand. Australians they must be this time of year. Shiny peels, polished them up with a rag or a handkerchief. Wait, those poor birds. He halted again, and bought from the old apple-woman 2 Banbury cakes for a penny, and broke the brittle paste and threw its fragments down into the Liffey. See that? The gulls swooped silently, too, then all from their heights, pouncing on prey, gone, every morsel. Aware of their greed and cunning, he shook the powdery crumb from his hands. They never expected that. Manna. Live on fish, fishy flesh they have. All seabirds, gulls, sea-goose, swans from Anna Liffey swim down here sometimes to preen themselves. No accounting for tastes. Wonder what kind is swan meat. Robinson Crusoe had to live on them. They wheeled, flapping weakly. I'm not going to throw any more. Penny quite enough. Lot of thanks I get. Not even a caw. They spread foot and mouth disease too. If you cram a turkey, say on chestnut meal, it tastes like that. Eat pig like pig. But then, why is it that saltwater fish are not salty? How is that? His eyes sought answer from the river, and saw a rowboat rock at anchor on the treacly swells lazily its plastered board. Kino's 11. Trousers. Good idea, that. Wonder if he pays rent to the corporation. How can you own water, really? It's always flowing in a stream, never the same, which in the stream of life we trace, because life is a stream. All kinds of places are good for ads. That quack doctor for the clap used to be stuck up in all the greenhouses. Never see it now. Strictly confidential. Dr. High Franks. Didn't cost him a red like Magini the Dancing Master self-advertisement. Got fellows to stick them up or stick them up himself for that matter on the QT running in to loosen a button. Fly-by-night. Just the place, too. Post-snow bills, post-110 pills. Some chap with the dose burning him. If he... Oh. Eh? No. 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 No, I don't believe it. He wouldn't, surely. No. No. Mr. Bloom moved forward, raising his troubled eyes. Think no more about that. After 1. Time ball on the ballast office is down. Dunsink time. Fascinating little book that is of Sir Robert Ball's. Parallax. I never exactly understood. There's a priest. Could ask him. It's Greek. Parallel. Parallax. Met him pike hoses, she called it, till I told her about the transmigration. Oh, rocks! Mr. Bloom smiled, oh, rocks, at 2 windows of the ballast office. She's right, after all. Only big words for ordinary things on account of the sound. She's not exactly witty. Can be rude, too. Blurt out what I was thinking. Still, I don't know. She used to say Ben Dollard had a bass baritone voice. He had legs like barrels, and you'd think he was singing into a barrel. Now isn't that wit? They used to call him Big Ben. Not half as witty as calling him bass baritone. Appetite like an albatross. Get outside of a baron of beef. Powerful man he was at stowing away #1 bass. Barrel of bass? See? It all works out. A procession of white-smocked sandwichmen marched slowly towards him along the gutter, scarlet sashes across their boards. Bargains, like that priest they are this morning. We have sinned, we have suffered. He read the scarlet letters on their 5 tall white hats. H-E-L-Y-S. Wisdom Heelys. Y, lagging behind, drew a chunk of bread from under his foreboard, crammed it into his mouth, and munched as he walked. Our staple food, 3 bob a day. Walking along the gutters, street after street, just keep skin and bone together, bread and skilly. They are not boil. No Gladesman. Doesn't bring in any business either. I suggested to him about a transparent show cart, with 2 smart girls sitting inside writing letters, copybooks, envelopes, blotting paper. I bet that would have caught on. Smart girls, writing something catch the eye at once. Everyone dying to know what she's writing. Get 20 of them round you if you stare at nothing. Have a finger in the pie. Women, too. Curiosity. Pillar of salt. Wouldn't have it, of course, because he didn't think of it himself first. Or the ink bottle I suggested with a false stain of black celluloid. His ideas for ads like plum trees potted under the obituaries. Cold meat department. You can't lick 'em. What? Our envelopes. Hello. Jones, where are you going? Can't stop, Robinson. I am hastening to purchase the only reliable ink eraser cancel, sold by Heelys Limited, 85 Dame Street. Well out of that ruck I am. Devil of a job it was collecting accounts of those convents. Tranquilla convent. That was a nice nun there. Really sweet face. Wimple suited her small head. Sister? Sister? I am sure she was crossed in love by her eyes. Very hard to bargain with that sort of a woman. I disturbed her at her devotions that morning, but glad to communicate with the outside world. Our great day, she said. Feast of Our Lady of Mount Carmel. Sweet name, too, Caramel. She knew I think she knew by the way if she had married she would have changed. I suppose they really were short of money, fried everything in the best butter all the same. No lard for them. My heart's broke eating dripping. They like buttering themselves in and out. Molly tasting it. Her veil up. Sister? Pat Claffey, the pawnbroker's daughter. It was a nun, they say, invented barbed wire. He crossed Westmoreland Street when apostrophe S had plodded by. Rover Cycle Shop. Those races are on today. How long ago is that? Year Phil Gilligan died. We were in Lombard Street West. Was in Tom's. Got the job in Wisdom Heelys' year we married. 6 years. 10 years ago. 94 he died, yes, that's right. The big fire at Arnott's. Val Dillon was Lord Mayor. The Glencree dinner. Alderman Robert O'Reilly emptying the port into his soup before the flag fell. Bob lapping it for the inner alderman. Couldn't hear what the band played. For what we have already received may the Lord make us. Millie was a kiddy then. Molly had that elephant grey dress with the braided frogs, man-tailored with self-covered buttons. She didn't like it because I sprained my ankle first day she wore choir picnic at the Sugarloaf. As if that. Old Goodwin's tall hat done up with some sticky stuff. Fly's picnic, too. Never put a dress on her back like it. Fitted her like a glove, shoulders and hips, just beginning to plump it out well. Rabbit pie we had that day, people looking after her. Happier then. Snug little room that was, with the red wallpaper, dockrels, 1 and 9 pence a dozen, Millie's tubbing night, American soap I bought, elderflower, cozy smell of her bathwater. Funny she looked soaked all over, shapely too. Now photography. Poor Papa's daguerreotype atelier he told me of, hereditary taste. He walked along the curbstone. Stream of life. What was the name of that priestly-looking chap was always squinting in when he passed? Weak eyes. Woman. Stopped in Citron St. Kevin's parade. Pen something. Pendennis? My memory is getting... Pen? Of course, it's years ago. Noise of the trams, probably. Well, if he couldn't remember the Dayfather's name that he sees every day... Bartol d'Arcy was the tenor, just coming out then, seeing her home after practice. Conceited fellow with his waxed-up mustache. Gave her that song, Winds That Blow from the South. Windy night, that was I went to fetch her there, was that lodge meeting on about those lottery tickets after Goodwin's concert in the supper-room or oak-room of the mansion house. He and I behind. Sheet of her music blew out of my hand against the high school railings. Lucky it didn't. Thing like that spoils the effect of a night for her. Professor Goodwin linking her in front. Shaky on his pins, poor old sot. His farewell concerts, positively last appearance on any stage. Maybe for months and maybe for never. Remember her laughing at the wind. Her blizzard collar up. Corner of Harcourt Road, remember that gust. Brfoo! Blew up all her skirts, and her boa nearly smothered old Goodwin. She did get flushed in the wind. Remember when we got home, raking up the fire and frying up those pieces of lap of mutton for her supper, with the chutney sauce she liked, and the mulled rum? Could see her in the bedroom from the hearth unclamping the busk of her stays, white. Swish and soft flop her stays made on the bed, always warm from her, always liked to let herself out, sitting there after till near 2, taking out her hairpins. Millie tucked up in Betty House, happy. That was the night... Oh, Mr. Bloom, how do you do? Oh, how do you do, Mrs. Breen? No use complaining. How is Molly those times? Haven't seen her for ages. In the pink, Mr. Bloom said gaily. Millie has a position down in Mullingar, you know. Go away. Isn't that grand for her? Yes, and the photographer's there, getting on like a house on fire. How are all your charges? All on the baker's list, Mrs. Breen said. How many has she? No other in sight? You're in black, I see. You have no... No, Mr. Bloom said. I have just come from a funeral. Going to crop up all day, I foresee. Who's dead? When and what did he die of? Turn up like a bad penny. Oh, dear me, Mrs. Breen said. I hope it wasn't any near relation. May as well get her sympathy. Dingham, Mr. Bloom said. An old friend of mine. He died quite suddenly, poor fellow. Heart trouble, I believe. Funeral was this morning. Your funeral's tomorrow while you're coming through the rye. Diddle, diddle, dum, dum, diddle, diddle. Sad to lose the old friends, Mrs. Breen's woman eyes said melancholily. Now that's quite enough about that, just quietly, husband. And your lord and master? Mrs. Breen turned up her 2 large eyes. Hasn't lost them anyhow. Oh, don't be talking, she said. He's a caution to rattlesnakes. He's in there now with his law books finding out the law of libel. He has me heart scalded. Wait till I show you. Hot mock turtle vapor and steam of new-baked jam puffs roly-poly poured out from Harrison's. The heavy noon reek tickled the top of Mr. Bloom's gullet. Want to make good pastry? Butter, best flour, demerara sugar, or they'd taste it with the hot tea. Or is it from her? A barefoot Arab stood over the grating, breathing in the fumes. Deaden the gnaw of hunger that way. Pleasure or pain, is it? Penny dinner, knife and fork chained to the table. Opening her handbag, chipped leather, hatpin, ought to have a guard on those things. Stick it in a chap's eye in the tram. Rummaging. Open. Money. Please take one. Devils if they lose sixpence. Raise Cain. Husband barging. Where's the 10 shillings I gave you on Monday? Are you feeding your little brother's family? Soiled handkerchief. Medicine bottle. Pastille. That was fell. What is she? There must be a new moon out, she said. He's always bad then. Do you know what he did last night? Her hands ceased to rummage. Her eyes fixed themselves on him, wide in alarm, yet smiling. What? Mr. Bloom asked. Let her speak. Look straight in her eyes. I believe you. Trust me. Woke me up in the night, she said. Dream he had, a nightmare. Indiges. Said the ace of spades was walking up the stairs. The ace of spades, Mr. Bloom said. She took a folded postcard from her handbag. Read that, she said. He got it this morning. What is it? Mr. Bloom asked, taking the card. U.P.? U.P.? Up, she said. Someone taking a rise out of him. It's a great shame for them, whoever he is. Indeed it is, Mr. Bloom said. She took back the card, sighing. And now he's going round to Mr. Minton's office. He's going to take an action for £10,000, he says. She folded the card into her untidy bag and snapped the catch. Same blue serge dress she had 2 years ago, the nap bleaching. Seen its best days. Wispish hair over her ears, and that dowdy toque. 3 old grapes to take the harm out of it. Shabby genteel. She used to be a tasty dresser. Lines round her mouth. Only a year or so older than Molly. See the eye that woman gave her, passing, cruel, the unfair sex. He looked still at her, holding back behind his look his discontent. Pungent mock turtle, oxtail, mulligatawny, I'm hungry too, flakes of pastry on the gusset of her dress, daub of sugary flour stuck to her cheek, rhubarb tart with liberal fillings, rich fruit interior. Josie Powell, that was, in Luke Doyle's Long Ago, Dolphin's Barn, the charades, U.P. Up. Change the subject. Do you ever see anything of Mrs. Beaufoy? Mr. Bloom asked. Mina Purefoy, she said. Philip Beaufoy, I was thinking. Playgoers Club. Matcham often thinks of the master stroke. Did I pull the chain? Yes. The last act? Yes. I just called to ask on the way in. Is she over it? She's in the lying-in hospital in Hollis Street. Dr. Horn got her in. She's 3 days bad now. Oh, Mr. Bloom said. I'm sorry to hear that. Yes, Mrs. Breen said. And a house full of kids at home. It's a very stiff birth, the nurse told me. Oh, Mr. Bloom said. His heavy, pitying gaze absorbed her news. His tongue clacked in compassion. I'm sorry to hear that, he said. Poor thing! 3 days, that's terrible for her. Mrs. Breen nodded. She was taken bad on the Tuesday. Mr. Bloom touched her funny bone gently, warning her, "Mind, let this man pass." A bony form strode along the curbside from the river, staring with a rapt gaze into the sunlight through a heavy stringed glass. Tight as a skull-piece, a tiny hat gripped his head. From his arm a folded dust-coat, a stick, and an umbrella dangled to his stride. "Watch him," Mr. Bloom said. "He always walks outside the lamp-posts. Watch." "Who is he, if it's a fair question?" Mrs. Breen asked. "Is he dotty?" "His name is Cashel Boyle O'Connor Fitzmaurice Tisdall Farrell," Mr. Bloom said, smiling. "Watch." "He has enough of them," she said. "Dennis will be like that one of these days." She broke off suddenly. "There he is," she said. "I must go after him. Goodbye. Remember me to Molly, won't you?" "I will," Mr. Bloom said. He watched her dodge through passers towards the shop fronts. Dennis Breen in skimpy frock coat and blue canvas shoes shuffled out of Harrison's, hugging two heavy tomes to his ribs. Blown in from the bay, like old times, he suffered her to overtake him without surprise, and thrust his dull grey beard towards her, his loose jaw wagging as he spoke earnestly. "Meshuggah, off his chump." Mr. Bloom walked on again easily, seeing ahead of him in sunlight the tight skull-piece, the dangling stick umbrella and dust-coat. Going the 2 days. Watch him. Out he goes again. One way of getting on in the world, and that other old mosey lunatic in those duds. Hard time she must have with him. U.P. I'll take my oath. That's Alf Bergen or Richie Golding. Wrote it for a lark in the Scotch House, I bet anything. Round to Minton's office, his oyster eyes staring at the postcard. Be a feast for the gods. He passed the Irish Times. There might be other answers lying there, like to answer them all. Good system for criminals. Code. At their lunch now. Clerk with the glasses there doesn't know me. Oh, leave them there to simmer. Enough bother wading through 44 of them. Wanted. Smart lady typist to aid gentlemen in literary work. I called you naughty darling because I do not like that other world. Please tell me what is the meaning. Please tell me what perfume does your wife. Tell me who made the world. The way they spring those questions on you. And the other one, Lizzie Twigg. My literary efforts have had the good fortune to meet with the approval of the eminent poet A.E. Mr. Geo. Russell. No time to do her hair drinking sloppy tea with a book of poetry. Best paper by long chalks for a small ad. Got the provinces now. Cook and General EXE Cuisine. Housemaid kept. Wanted live man for spirit counter. RESP. Girl RC. Wishes to hear of post in fruit or pork shop. James Carlyle made that. 6.5% dividend. Made a big deal on Coates's shares. Canny cunning old Scotch hunks. All the toady news. Our gracious and popular viceroy. Bought the Irish field now. Lady Mountcashel has quite recovered after her confinement, and rode out with the Ward Union staghounds at the enlargement yesterday at Rathawith. Uneatable fox. Pot hunters, too. Fear injects juices make it tender enough for them. Riding astride. Sit her horse like a man. Weight-carrying huntress. No side saddle or pillion for her. Not for Joe. First to the meet and in at the death. Strong as a brood mare, some of these horsey women. Swagger around livery stables. Toss off a glass of brandy neat while you'd say knife. That one at the Grosvenor this morning. Up with her on the car, whish, swish. Stonewall or 5-barred gate put her mount to it. Think that pug-nosed driver did it out of spite. Who is this she was like? Oh yes, Mrs. Miriam Dandrade that sold me her old wraps and black underclothes in the Shelbourne Hotel. Divorced Spanish-American. Didn't take a feather out of her my handling them. as if I was her clothes horse. Saw her in the vice-regal party when Stubbs, the park ranger, got me in with Whelan of the Express, scavenging what the quality left, high tea. Mayonnaise I poured on the plums, thinking it was custard. Her ears ought to have tingled for a few weeks after. Want to be a bull for her, born courtesan. No nursery work for her, thanks. Poor Mrs. Purefoy, Methodist husband, method in his madness. Saffron bun and milk and soda lunch in the educational dairy, YMCA, eating with a stopwatch, 32 chews to the minute. And still his mutton chop whiskers grew. Supposed to be well connected. Theodore's cousin in Dublin Castle, one Tony relative in every family. Hardy annuals he presents her with. Saw him out at the 3 jolly toppers marching along bareheaded, and his eldest boy carrying one in a market net. The squallers, poor thing! Then having to give the breast year after year all hours of the night. Selfish those TTs are, dog in the manger, only 1 lump of sugar in my tea, if you please. He stood at Fleet Street crossing, luncheon interval, a 6-penny at Rose. Must look up that ad in the National Library. An 8-penny in the Burton, better. On my way. He walked on past Bolton's Westmoreland House. Tea. I forgot to tap Tom Kernan. Tth. 3 days imagine groaning on a bed with a vinegared handkerchief round her forehead, her belly swollen out. Phew! Dreadful simply. Child's head too big. Forceps. Doubled up inside her, trying to butt its way out blindly, groping for the way out. Kill me, that would. Lucky Molly got over hers lightly. They ought to invent something to stop that. Life with hard labor. Twilight sleep idea. Queen Victoria was given that. 9 she had, a good layer. Old woman that lived in a shoe, she had so many children. Suppose he was consumptive. Time someone thought about it instead of gassing about the the pensive bosom of the silver effulgence. Flapdoodle to feed fools on. They could easily have big establishments, whole thing quite painless out of all the taxes, give every child born 5 quid at compound interest, up to 21 5% is 100 shillings and 5 tiresome pounds multiplied by 20 decimal system. Encourage people to put by money, save 110 and a bit 21 years, want to work it out on paper, come to a tidy sum more than you think. Not stillborn, of course. They are not even registered. Trouble for nothing. Funny sight, 2 of them together, their bellies out, Molly and Mrs. Moisel. Mothers meeting. Pithesis retires for the time being, then returns. How flat they look all of a sudden after. Peaceful eyes, weight off their mind. Old Mrs. Thornton was a jolly old soul. All my babies, she said, the spoon of pap in her mouth before she fed them. Oh, that's yum. Got her hand crushed by old Tom Wall's son. His first bow to the public, head like a prize pumpkin. Snuffy Dr. Murrin. People knocking them up at all hours. For God's sake, doctor, wife in her throes. Then keep them waiting months for their fee. To attendance on your wife. No gratitude in people. Humane doctors, most of them. Before the huge high door of the Irish House of Parliament a flock of pigeons flew, their little frolic after meals. Who will we do it on? I pick the fellow in black. Here goes. Here's good luck. Must be thrilling from the air. Apjohn, myself and Owen Goldberg up in the trees near Goose Green playing the monkeys. Mackerel, they called me. A squad of constables debouched from College Street, marching in Indian file. Goose-step. Food-heated faces, sweating helmets, patting their truncheons, after their feed with a good load of fat soup under their belts. Policemen's lot is oft a happy one. They split up in groups and scattered, saluting, towards their beats. Let out to graze, best moment to attack one in pudding time. A punch in his dinner. a squad of others marching irregularly, rounded Trinity railings marking for the station, bound for their troughs. Prepare to receive cavalry, prepare to receive soup. He crossed under Tommy Moore's roguish finger. They did right to put him up over a urinal, meeting of the waters. Ought to be places for women, running into cake shops. Settle my hat straight. There is naught in this wide world of Ali. Great song of Julia Morkan's. Kept her voice up to the very last. Pupil of Michael Balfe's, wasn't she? He gazed after the last broad tunic. Nasty customers to tackle. Jack Power could a tale unfold. Father a G-man. If a fellow gave them trouble being lagged, they'd let him have it hot and heavy in the bridewell. Can't blame them after all with the job they have, especially the young hornies. That horse policeman, the day Joe Chamberlain was given his degree in Trinity, he got a run for his money. My word, he did. His horse's hoofs clattering after us down Abbey Street. Lucky I had the presence of mind to dive into Manning's, or I was souped. He did come a wallop, by George. Must have cracked his skull on the cobblestones. I oughtn't to have got myself swept along with those medicals, and the Trinity jibs and their mortarboards. Looking for trouble. Still, I got to know that young Dixon, who dressed that sting for me in the Mater, and now he's in Hollis Street or Mrs. Purefoy. Wheels within wheels, police whistle in my ears still, all skedaddled. Why, he fixed on me, give me in charge. Right here it began. Up the Boers! 3 cheers for Duet! We'll hang Joe Chamberlain on a sour apple tree. Silly billies. Mob of young cubs yelling their guts out. Vinegar Hill, the Butter Exchange Band. Few years' time, half of them magistrates and civil servants. War comes on. Into the army, helter-skelter. Same fellows used to, whether on the scaffold high. Never know who you're talking to. Corny Kelleher, he was Harvey Duff in his eye. Like that Peter or Dennis or James Carey that blew the gaff on the Invincibles. Member of the corporation, too, egging raw youths on to get in the know, all the time drawing Secret Service pay from the castle. Drop him like a hot potato. Why, those plainclothes men are always courting slaveys. Easily twig a man used to uniform. Square pushing up against the back door. Maul her a bit. Then the next thing on the menu. And who is the gentleman does be visiting there? Was the young master saying anything? Peeping Tom through the keyhole, decoy duck. Hot-blooded young student fooling round her fat arms, ironing. Are those yours, Mary? I don't wear such things. Stop, or I'll tell the missus on you, out half the night. There are great times coming, Mary. Wait till you see. Ah, go along with your great times coming. Barmaids, too, tobacco shop girls. James Stephen's idea was the best. He knew them. Circles of 10 so that a fellow couldn't round on more than his own ring. Sin fine. Back out you get the knife. Hidden hand. Stay in. The firing squad. Turnkey's daughter got him out of Richmond. Off from Lusk. Putting up in the Buckingham Palace Hotel under their very noses. Garibaldi. You must have a certain fascination, Parnell. Arthur Griffith is a square-headed fellow, but he has no go in him for the mob, or gas about our lovely land. Gammon and spinach. Dublin Bakery Company's tea-room, debating societies, that republicanism is the best form of government, that the language question should take precedence of the economic question. Have your daughters inveigling them to your house. Stuff them up with meat and drink. Macalmus goose. Here's a good lump of thyme seasoning under the apron for you. Have another quart of goose grease before it gets too cold. Half enthusiasts. Penny roll and a walk with the band. No grace for the carver. The thought that the other chap pays best sauce in the world, make themselves thoroughly at home, show us over those apricots, meaning peaches, the not far distant day, home rule sun rising up in the northwest. His smile faded as he walked, a heavy cloud hiding the sun slowly, shadowing Trinity's surly front. Trams passed one another, ingoing, outgoing, clanging. Useless words. Things go on same, day after day. Squads of police marching out, back, trams in, out. Those two loonies mooching about. Dingnam carted off. Mina Purefoy swollen belly on a bed groaning to have a child tugged out of her. One born every second somewhere. Other dying every second. Since I fed the birds 5 minutes, 300 kicked the bucket. Other 300 born, washing the blood off. All are washed in the blood of the lamb, bawling, ma. Cityful passing away, other cityful coming. Passing away too, other coming on, passing on. Houses, lines of houses, streets, miles of pavements, piled up bricks, stones, changing hands, this owner, that. Landlord never dies, they say. Other steps into his shoes when he gets his notice to quit. They buy the place up with gold, and still they have all the gold. Swindle in it somewhere. Piled up in cities, worn away age after age. Pyramids in sand, built on bread and onions. Slaves, Chinese wall, Babylon. Big stones left, round towers, rest rubble. Sprawling suburbs, jerry-built. Kurwan's mushroom houses built of breeze, shelter for the night. No one is anything. This is the very worst hour of the day. Vitality, dull, gloomy. Hate this hour. Feel as if I had been eaten and spewed. Provost's house. The Reverend Dr. Salmon. Tinned salmon. Well tinned in there, like a mortuary chapel. Wouldn't live in it if they paid me. Hope they have liver and bacon today. Nature abhors a vacuum. The sun freed itself slowly and lit glints of light among the silverware opposite in Walter Sexton's window, by which John Howard Parnell passed, unseeing. There he is, the brother, image of him, haunting face. Now that's a coincidence. Course hundreds of times you think of a person and don't meet him. Like a man walking in his sleep. No one knows him. Must be a corporation meeting today. They say he never put on the city marshal's uniform since he got the job. Charlie Kavanagh used to come out on his high horse, cocked hat, puffed, powdered, and shaved. Look at the woebegone walk of him, eatin' a bad egg, poached eyes on ghost. I have a pain, great man's brother, his brother's brother. He'd look nice on the city charger, drop into the DBC probably for his coffee, play chess there. His brother used men as pawns, let them all go to pot. Afraid to pass a remark on him, freeze them up with that eye of his. That's the fascination, the name, all a bit touched. Mad Fanny and his other sister, Mrs. Dickinson, driving about with scarlet harness, bolt upright like Surgeon Mardell. Still, David Sheehy beat him for South Mead. Apply for the Chiltern Hundreds and retire into public life. The Patriots' banquet, eating orange peels in the park. Simon Dedalus said, when they put him in Parliament, that Parnell would come back from the grave and lead him out of the House of Commons by the arm. Of the two-headed octopus, one of whose heads is the head upon which the ends of the world have forgotten to come, while the other speaks with a Scotch accent, the tentacles. They passed from behind Mr. Bloom along the curbstone, beard and bicycle, young woman. And there he is, too. Now, that's really a coincidence. Second time. Coming events cast their shadows before. With the approval of the eminent poet Mr. Geo. Russell. That might be Lizzie Twigg with him. A.E. What does that mean? Initials, perhaps? Albert Edward. Arthur Edmund. Alphonsus Eb. Ed. L. Esquire. What was he saying? The ends of the world with a Scotch accent? Tentacles. Octopus. Something occult. Symbolism. Holding forth. She's taking it all in, not saying a word, to aid gentlemen in literary work. His eyes followed the high figure in homespun, beard and bicycle, a listening woman at his side, coming from the vegetarian. Only vegetables and fruit. Don't eat a beefsteak. If you do, the eyes of that cow will pursue you through all eternity. They say it's healthier. Wind and watery, though. Tried it. Keep you on the run all day. Bad as a bloater. Dreams all night. Why do they call that thing they gave me nut steak? Nutarians. Fruitarians. To give you the idea, you are eating rump steak. Absurd. Salty, too. They cook in soda. Keep you sitting by the tap all night. Her stockings are loose over her ankles. I detest that. So tasteless. Those literary, ethereal people, they are all. Dreamy, cloudy, symbolistic. Aesthetes they are. I wouldn't be surprised if it was that kind of food you see produces the like waves of the brain, the poetical. For example, one of those policemen sweating Irish stew into their shirts, you couldn't squeeze a line of poetry out of him. Don't know what poetry is, even. Must be in a certain mood. The dreamy, cloudy gull waves o'er the waters dull. He crossed at Nassau Street corner and stood before the window of Yates and Son, pricing the field glasses. Or will I drop into old Harris's and have a chat with young Sinclair? Well-mannered fellow, probably at his lunch. Must get those old glasses of mine set right. Gert's lenses 6 guineas. Germans making their way everywhere. Sell on easy terms to capture trade. Undercutting. Might chance on a pair in the Railway Lost Property Office. Astonishing the things people leave behind them in trains and cloakrooms. What do they be thinking about? Women, too. Incredible. Last year, traveling to Ennis, had to pick up that farmer's daughter's ba and hand it to her at Limerick Junction. Unclaimed money, too. There's a little watch up there on the roof of the bank to test those glasses by. His lids came down on the lower rims of his irides. Can't see it. If you imagine it's there, you can almost see it. Can't see it. He faced about and, standing between the awnings, held out his right hand at arm's length towards the sun. Wanted to try that often. Yes, completely. The tip of his little finger blotted out the sun's disk. Must be the focus where the rays cross. If I had black glasses. Interesting. There was a lot of talk about those sunspots when we were in Lombard Street West. Looking up from the back garden. Terrific explosions they are. There will be a total eclipse this year. Autumn sometime. Now that I come to think of it, that ball falls at Greenwich time. It's the clock is worked by an electric wire from Dunsink. Must go out there some first Saturday of the month. If I could get an introduction to Professor Joly, or learn up something about his family, that would do too. Man always feels complimented. Flattery where least expected. Nobleman proud to be descended from some king's mistress. His foremother lay it on with a trowel. Cap in hand goes through the land. Not go in, and blurt out what you know you're not to. What's parallax? Shows this gentleman the door. Ah. His hand fell to his side again. Never know anything about it. Waste of time. Gas balls spinning about, crossing each other, passing. Same old ding-dong always. Gas, then solid, then whirled, then cold, then dead shell drifting around. frozen rock, like that pineapple rock. The moon. Must be a new moon out, she said. I believe there is. He went on by La Maison Claire. Wait. The full moon was the night we were Sunday fortnight exactly. There is a new moon. Walking down by the Tolka. Not bad for a Fairview moon. She was humming. The young May moon, she's beaming. Love. The other side of her. Arm. He. Glowworm's amp is gleaming. Love. Touch. Fingers. Asking. Answer. Yes. Stop. Stop. If it was, it was. Must. Mr. Bloom, quick breathing, slowlier, walking past Atom Court. With a keep quiet relief his eyes took note, this is the street here, middle of the day, of Bob Doran's bottle shoulders. On his annual bend, M'Coy said, they drink in order to say or do something, or chercher la femme. Up in the coombe with chummies and streetwalkers, and then the rest of the year sober as a judge. Yes, thought so. Sloping into the Empire, gone. Plain soda would do him good. Where Pat Kinsella had his harp theatre before Whitbread ran the Queen's. Broth of a boy. Dion Boucicault, business with his harvest moon face and a poky bonnet. 3 pretty maids from school. How time flies, eh? Showing long red pantaloons under his skirts. Drinkers, drinking, laughed spluttering, their drink against their breath. More power, Pat, coarse red, fun for drunkards, guffaw and smoke. Take off that white hat, his parboiled eyes. Where is he now? Beggar somewhere, the harp that once did starve us all. I was happier then. Or was that I? Or am I now I? 28 I was. She, 23. When we left Lombard Street West, something changed. Could never like it again after Rudy. Can't bring back time, like holding water in your hand. Would you go back to then? Just beginning then, would you? Are you not happy in your home, you poor little naughty boy? Wants to sew on buttons for me. I must answer. Write it in the library. Grafton Street, gay with housed awnings, lured his senses. Muslin prints, silk dames, and dowagers, jingle of harnesses, hoof-thuds, low ringing in the baking causeway. Thick feet that woman has in the white stockings. Hope the rain mucks them up on her. Country bread, chaw bacon. All the beef to the heels we're in. Always gives a woman clumsy feet. Molly looks out of plumb. He passed, dallying, the windows of Brown Thomas, silk mercers, cascades of ribbons, flimsy china silks. A tilted urn poured from its mouth a flood of blood-hued poplin, lustrous blood. The Huguenots brought that here. La Casa e Santa, Tara Tara. Great chorus that. Tari Tara. Must be washed in rainwater. Meyer beer. Tara. Bum bum bum. Pincushions. I'm a long time threatening to buy one, sticking them all over the place. Needles in window curtains. He bared slightly his left forearm. Scrape nearly gone. Not today, anyhow. Must go back for that lotion. For her birthday, perhaps. June, July, August, September, 8th. Nearly 3 months off. Then she mightn't like it. Women won't pick up pins. Say it cut slow. Gleaming silks, petticoats on slim brass rails, rays of flat silk stockings. Unless to go back. Had to be. Tell me all. High voices, sun-warm silk, jingling harnesses, all for a woman. Home and houses, silk webs, silver, rich fruit spicy from Jaffa. Agendath Nitam. Wealth of the world. A warm human plumpness settled down on his brain. His brain yielded. Perfume of embraces all him assailed. With hungered flesh obscurely, he mutely craved to adore. Duke Street. Here we are. Must eat. The Burton. Feel better then. He turned Combridge's corner, still pursued. jingling hoof thuds, perfumed bodies, warm, full, all kissed, yielded, in deep summer fields, tangled pressed grass, in trickling hallways of tenements, along sofas, creaking beds. Jack, love, darling, kiss me, Reggie, my boy, love. His heart astir, he pushed in the door of the Burton restaurant. Stink gripped his trembling breath. Pungent meat juice, slush of greens, see the animals feed. Men, men, men. Perched on high stools by the bar, hats shoved back, at the tables calling for more bread, no charge, swilling, wolfing gobfuls of sloppy food, their eyes bulging, wiping wetted mustaches. A pallid, soot-faced young man polished his tumbler, knife, fork, and spoon with his napkin. New set of microbes. A man with an infant's sauce-stained napkin tucked around him shoveled gurgling soup down his gullet. A man spitting back on his plate, half-masticated gristle, gums, no teeth to chew it. Chump, chop from the grill, bolting to get it over, sad boozer's eyes, bitten off more than he can chew. Am I like that? See ourselves as others see us. Hungry man is an angry man, working tooth and jaw. Don't! Oh, a bone! That last pagan king of Ireland, Cormac, in the school poem, choked himself at Sletty southward of the Boyne. Wonder what he was eating. Something voluptuous. St. Patrick converted him to Christianity. Couldn't swallow it all, however. Roast beef and cabbage. One stew. Smells of men. His gorge rose. Spatten sawdust. Sweetish, warmish cigarette smoke. Reek of plug. Spilt beer. Men's beery piss. The stale of ferment. Couldn't eat a morsel here. Fellow sharpening knife and fork to eat all before him. Old chap picking his tootles. Slight spasm, full, chewing the cud. Before and after, grace after meals. Look on this picture, then on that. Scoffing up stew gravy with sopping sippets of bread. Lick it off the plate, man. Get out of this. He gazed round the stooled and tabled eaters, tightening the wings of his nose. 2 stouts here. 1 corned and cabbage. That fellow ramming a knifeful of cabbage down, as if his life depended on it. Good stroke. Give me the fidgets to look, safer to eat from his 3 hands. Tear it limb from limb, second nature to him, born with the silver knife in his mouth. That's witty, I think, or no. Silver means born rich, born with a knife. But then the illusion is lost. An ill-girt server gathered sticky, clattering plates. Rock, the head bailiff, standing at the bar, blew the foamy crown from his tankard. Well up, it splashed yellow near his boot. A diner, knife and fork upright, elbows on table, ready for a second helping, stared towards the food lift across his stained square of newspaper. Other chap telling him something with his mouth full. Sympathetic listener. Table talk. I munched unto Unchester bonk munchday. Ha? Did you, faith? Mr. Bloom raised 2 fingers doubtfully to his lips. His eyes said, Not here. Don't see him. Out. I hate dirty eaters. He backed towards the door. Get a light snack in Davy Burns. Stopgag. Keep me going. Had a good breakfast. Roast and mashed here. Pint of stout. Every fellow for his own. Tooth and nail. Gulp. Grub. Gulp. Gobstuff. He came out into clearer air and turned back towards Grafton Street. Eat or be eaten. Kill! Kill! Suppose that communal kitchen, years to come, perhaps, all trotting down with porringers and tommycans to be filled. Devour contents in the street. John Howard Parnell example, the provost of Trinity, every mother's son. Don't talk of your provost and provost of Trinity women and children, cabmen, priests, parsons, field marshals, archbishops. From Aylesbury Road, Clyde Road, Artisan dwellings, North Dublin Union, Lord Mayor in his gingerbread coach, old Queen in a bath chair, my plate's empty. After you with our incorporated drinking cup. Like Sir Philip Crampton's fountain, rub off the microbes with your handkerchief. Next chap rubs on a new batch with his. Father O'Flynn would make hers of them all. Have rows all the same, all for number 1. Children fighting for the scrappings of the pot. Want a soup pot as big as the Phoenix Park. Harpooning flitches and hindquarters out of it. Hate people all round you. City Arms Hotel, table d'hote, she called it. Soup, joint and sweet. Never know whose thoughts you're chewing. Then who'd wash up all the plates and forks? Might be all feeding on tabloids that time, teeth getting worse and worse. After all, there's a lot in that vegetarian fine flavor of things from the earth. Garlic, of course, it stinks after Italian organ grinders, crisp of the onions, mushrooms, truffles, pain to the animal too. Pluck and draw fowl, wretched brutes there at the cattle market waiting for the pole axe to split their skulls open. Moo. Poor trembling calves. Meh. Staggering bob, bubble and squeak. Butcher's buckets, wobbly lights. Give us that brisket off the hook. Plop. Raw head and bloody bones. Flayed, glass-eyed sheep hung from their haunches. Sheep snouts. Bloody papered, sniveling, nose jam on sawdust, top and lashers going out. Don't maul them pieces, young one. Hot, fresh blood they prescribe for decline. Blood always needed. Insidious. Lick it up, smoking hot, thick sugary, famished ghosts. Ah, I'm hungry. He entered Davy Burns' moral pub. He doesn't chat. Stands a drink now and then, but in leap year once in 4. Cashed a check for me once. What will I take now? He drew his watch. Let me see now. Shandygaff? Hello, Bloom. Nosy Flynn said from his nook. Hello, Flynn. How's things? Tip-top. Let me see. I'll take a glass of Burgundy, and let me see. Sardines on the shelves, almost taste them by looking. Sandwich? Ham and his descendants, mustard and bread there. Potted meats. What is home without Plumtree's potted meat? Incomplete. What a stupid ad. Under the obituary notices they stuck it. All up a Plumtree. Dingnam's potted meat. Cannibals would with lemon and rice. White missionary, too salty, like pickled pork. Expect the chief consumes the parts of honor. Ought to be tough from exercise. His wives in a row to watch the effect. There was a right royal old man who ate or something, the somethings of the Reverend Mr. MacTrigger. With it an abode of bliss, Lord knows what concoction. Calls, mouldy tripes, windpipes, fake and minced up. Puzzle find the meat. Kosher. No meat and milk together. Hygiene. That was what they call now. Yom Kippur, fast spring cleaning of inside. Peace and war depend on some fellow's digestion. Religions, Christmas turkeys and geese. Slaughter of innocents. Eat, drink, and be merry. Then casual wards full after. Heads bandaged. Cheese digests all but itself. Mitty cheese. Have you a cheese sandwich? Yes, sir. Like a few olives, too, if they had them. Italian, I prefer. Good glass of Burgundy, take away that. Lubricate. A nice salad, cool as a cucumber. Tom Kernan can dress. Puts gusto into it. Pure olive oil. Millie served me that cutlet with a sprig of parsley. Take 1 Spanish onion. God made food, the devil the cooks. Deviled crab? Wife well? Quite well, thanks. A cheese sandwich, then. Gargonzola, have you? Yes, sir. Nosy Flynn sipped his grog. Doing any singing those times? Look at his mouth. Could whistle in his own ear, flap ears to match. Music? Knows as much about it as my coachman. Still, better tell him. Does no harm. Free ad. She's engaged for a big tour end of this month. You may have heard, perhaps? No. Oh, that's the style? Who's getting it up? The curate served. How much is that? 7d, sir. Thank you, sir. Mr. Bloom cut his sandwich into slender strips. Mr. McTrigger, easier than the dreamy, creamy stuff. His 500 wives had the time of their lives. Mustard, sir? Thank you. He studied under each lifted strip yellow blobs. Their lives. I have it. It grew bigger and bigger and bigger. Getting it up, he said. Well, it's like a company idea, you see. Part shares and part profits. Now I remember, Nosey Flynn said, putting his hand in his pocket to scratch his groin. Who is this was telling me? Isn't Blazes Boylan mixed up in it? A warm shock of air heat of mustard hunched on Mr. Bloom's heart. He raised his eyes and met the stare of a bilious clock. 2. Pub clock 5 minutes fast. Time going on. Hands moving. 2. Not yet. His midriff yearned, then upward, sank within him, yearned more longingly. Wine. He smell-sipped the cordial juice, and bidding his throat strongly to speed it, set his wine-glass delicately down. Yes, he said, he's the organizer in point of fact. No fear, no brains. Nosey Flynn snuffled and scratched, Flea having a good square meal. He had a good slice of luck. Jack Mooney was telling me, over that boxing match Myler Cogue won agin that soldier in the Portobello barracks. By God, he had that little kipper down in the County Carlo, he was telling me. Hope that dewdrop doesn't come down into his glass. No, snuffled it up. For near a month, man, before it came off, sucking duck eggs, by God, till further orders. Keep him off the booze, see? Oh, by God, Blazes is a hairy chap. Davy Byrne came forward from the hind bar in tuck-stitched shirt-sleeves, cleaning his lips with 2 wipes of his napkin. Herring's blush, whose smile upon each feature plays with such and such, replete. Too much fat on the parsnips. And here's himself and pepper on him, Nosey Flynn said. Can you give us a good one for the Gold Cup? I'm off that, Mr. Flynn, Davy Byrne answered. I never put anything on a horse. You're right there, Nosey Flynn said. Mr. Bloom ate his strips of sandwich. Fresh, clean bread, with relish of disgust, pungent mustard, the feety savour of green cheese. Sips of his wine soothed his palate. Not logwood, that. Tastes fuller this weather with the chill off. Nice, quiet bar. Nice piece of wood in that counter. Nicely planed. Like the way it curves there. I wouldn't do anything at all in that line, Davy Byrne said. It ruined many a man, the same horses. Vintner's sweepstake, licensed for the sale of beer, wine, and spirits for consumption on the premises. Heads I win, tails you lose. True for you, Nosey Flynn said, unless you're in the know. There's no straight sport going now. Linehan gets some good ones. He's giving Scepter today. Zinfandel's the favourite. Lord Howard de Walden's won at Epsom. Morny Cannon is riding him. I could have got 7-1 against St. Amant a fortnight before. That's so, Davy Byrne said. He went towards the window and, taking up the petty cash book, scanned its pages. I could, faith, Nosey Flynn said, snuffling. That was a rare bit of horseflesh. St. Fruscan was her sire. She won in a thunderstorm. Rothschild's filly, with wadding in her ears, blue jacket and yellow cap. Bad luck to Big Ben Dollard and his John O'Gaunt. He put me off it, eh? He drank resignedly from his tumbler, running his fingers down the flutes. Eh, he said, sighing. Mr. Bloom, champing, standing, looked upon his sigh. Nosy numbskull, will I tell him that horse Lenehan? He knows already. Better let him forget. Go and lose more. Fool and his money. Dewdrop coming down again. Cold nose he'd have kissing a woman. Still, they might like. Prickly beards they like. Dogs, cold noses. Old Mrs. Riordan, with the rumbling stomach Skye Terrier in the City Arms Hotel, Molly fondling him in her lap. Oh, the big doggy bow-wowsy-wowsy. Wine soaked and softened, rolled pith of bread mustard a moment mawkish cheese. Nice wine it is. Taste it better because I'm not thirsty. Bath, of course, does that. Just a bite or two. Then about 6 o'clock I can. 6. Time will be gone then. She... Mild fire of wine kindled his veins. I wanted that badly. Felt so off-color. His eyes unhungrily sought shelves of tins, sardines, gaudy lobsters, claws, all the odd things people pick up for food. Out of shells, periwinkles with a pin, off trees, snails out of the ground, the French eat. Out of the sea with bait on a hook, silly fish learn nothing in 1,000 years. If you didn't know risky putting anything into your mouth, poisonous berries, Johnny Magories, roundness you think good. Gaudy color warns you off. One fellow told another, and so on. Try it on the dog first. Led on by the smell or the look, tempting fruit, ice cones, cream, instinct. Orange groves, for instance, need artificial irrigation. Leibstrasse. Yes, but what about oysters? Unsightly like a clot of phlegm. Filthy shells. Devil to open them too. Who found them out? Garbage, sewage they feed on. Fizz and red bank oysters. Effect on the sexual. Aphrodis. He was in the red bank this morning. Was he oysters, old fish at table, perhaps? He young flesh in bed, no June has, are no oysters. But there are people like things high, tainted game, jugged hare, first catch your hare, Chinese eating eggs 50 years old, blue and green again, dinner of 30 courses. Each dish harmless might mix inside, idea for a poison mystery. That Archduke Leopold, was it? No, yes, or was it Otto, one of those Habsburgs? Or who was it used to eat the scruff off his own head? Cheapest lunch in town, of course, aristocrats. Then the others copy to be in the fashion. Millie to rock oil and flour, raw pastry I like myself, half the catch of oysters they throw back in the sea to keep up the price. Cheap, no one would buy. Caviar, do the grand, hawk in green glasses, swelled blowout. Lady this, powdered bosom pearls. The elite, creme de la creme. They want special dishes to pretend they're hermit, with a platter of pulse keep down the stings of the flesh. Know me, come eat with me. Royal sturgeon, high sheriff. Coffee, the butcher, right to venisons of the forest from his ex. Send him back the half of a cow. Spread I saw down in the master of the rolls kitchen area. White-hatted chef like a rabbi. Combustible duck. Curly cabbage a la Duchesse de Parma. Just as well to write it on the bill of fare, so you can know what you've eaten. Too many drugs spoil the broth. I know it myself. Dosing it with Edward's desiccated soup. Geese stuffed silly for them. Lobsters boiled alive. Do take some ptarmigan. Wouldn't mind being a waiter in a swell hotel. Tips, evening dress, half-naked ladies. May I tempt you to a little more filets lemon sole, Miss Dubedat? Yes, Dubedat. And she did, bedad. Huguenot name, I expect that. A Miss Duvidad lived in Killiney, I remember. Du de la French. Still, it's the same fish perhaps old Mickey Hanlon of Moore Street ripped the guts out of, making money, hand over fist, finger in fish's gills, can't write his name on a check, think he was painting the landscape with his mouth twisted. Muakil, acha-ha, ignorant as a quiche of Bruges, worth 50,000 pounds. Stuck on the pane, 2 flies buzzed. Stuck. Glowing wine on his palate lingered, swallowed, crushing in the winepress grapes of Burgundy. Sun's heat it is, seems to a secret touch telling me memory. Touched his sense, moistened, remembered, hidden under wild ferns on Howth. Below us bay sleeping, sky, no sound, the sky. The bay purple by the lion's head, green by Drumlick, yellow-green towards Sutton. Fields of undersea, the lines faint brown in grass, buried cities. Pillowed on my coat she had her hair, earwigs in the heather scrub, my hand under her nape. You'll toss me all, oh, wonder! Cool, soft with ointments her hand touched me, caressed. Her eyes upon me did not turn away. Ravished over her I lay, full lips, full open, kissed her mouth. Yum! Softly she gave me in my mouth the seed cake warm and chewed. Mawkish pulp her mouth had mumbled sweet sour of her spittle. Joy, I ate it, joy, young life, her lips that gave me pouting. Soft, warm, sticky gum jelly lips, flowers her eyes were. Take me, willing eyes, pebbles fell, she lay still, a goat, no one. High on Ben Howth rhododendrons, and any goat walking sure-footed, dropping currants. Screened under ferns she laughed warm-folded. Wildly I lay on her, kissed her eyes, her lips, her stretched neck beating, woman's breasts full in her blouse of nun's veiling, fat nipples upright. Hot I tongued her, she kissed me, I was kissed. All yielding she tossed my hair, kissed, she kissed me, and me now. Stuck, the flies buzzed. His downcast eyes followed the silent veining of the oaken slab. Beauty, it curves, curves our beauty. Shapely goddesses, Venus, Juno, curves the world admires. Can see them, library, museum, standing in the round hall. Naked goddesses, aids to digestion. They don't care what man looks, all to see, never speaking. I mean to say to fellows like Flynn, suppose she did Pygmalion and Galatea, what would she say first? Mortal, put you in your proper place, quaffing nectar at mess with the gods' golden dishes, all ambrosial, not like a tanner lunch we have, boiled mutton, carrots and turnips, bottle of Alsop. Nectar, imagine it drinking electricity, God's food, lovely forms of women sculpted Junonian, immortal, lovely, and we stuffing food in one hole and out behind, food, chyle, blood, dung, earth, food. Have to feed it like stoking an engine. They have never looked. I'll look today. Keeper won't see. Bend down, let something drop, see if she. Dribbling a quiet message from his bladder, came to go, to do, not to do, there to do. A man, and ready he drained his glass to the lees and walked. To men, too, they gave themselves, manly conscious. Lay with men-lovers, a youth enjoyed her to the yard. When the sound of his boots had ceased, Davy Byrne said from his book, "What is this he is? Isn't he in the insurance line?" "He's out of that long ago," Nosey Flynn said. "He does canvassing for the freemen." I know him well to see, Davy Byrne said. Is he in trouble? Trouble? Nosey Flynn said. Not that I heard of. Why? I noticed he was in mourning. Was he? Nosey Flynn said. So he was, faith. I asked him how he was all at home. You're right, by God. So he was. I never broach the subject, Davy Byrne said humanely. If I see a gentleman is in trouble that way, it only brings it up fresh in their minds. It's not the wife, anyhow, Nosey Flynn said. I met him the day before yesterday, and he coming out of that Irish farm dairy John Wyse Nolan's wife has in Henry Street with a jar of cream in his hand, taking it home to his better half. She's well nourished, I tell you. Plovers on toast. And is he doing for the freemen? Davy Byrne said. Nosey Flynn pursed his lips. He doesn't buy cream on the ads he picks up. You can make bacon of that. How so? Davy Byrne asked, coming from his book. Nosey Flynn made swift passes in the air with juggling fingers. He winked. He's in the craft, he said. Do you tell me so? Davy Byrne said. Very much so, Nosey Flynn said. Ancient, free, and accepted order. He's an excellent brother. Light, life, and love, by God. They give him a leg up. I was told that by well, I won't say who. Is that a fact? Oh, it's a fine order, Nosey Flynn said. They stick to you when you're down. I know a fellow was trying to get into it. But they're as close as damn it. By God, they did right to keep the women out of it. Davy Byrne smiled, yawned, nodded, all in one. Aye-a-chotch! There was one woman, Nosey Flynn said, hid herself in a clock to find out what they do be doing. But be damned, but they smelt her out and swore her in on the spot a master mason. That was one of the St. Ledgers of Doneraile. Davy Byrne, sated after his yawn, said with tear-washed eyes, And is that a fact? Decent, quiet man he is. I often saw him in here, and I never once saw him, you know, over the line. God Almighty couldn't make him drunk, Nosey Flynn said firmly. Slips off when the fun gets too hot. Didn't you see him look at his watch? Ah, you weren't there. If you ask him to have a drink, first thing he does, he outs with the watch to see what he ought to imbibe. Declare to God he does. There are some like that, Davy Byrne said. He's a safe man, I'd say. He's not too bad, Nosey Flynn said, snuffling it up. He's been known to put his hand down to help a fellow. Give the devil his due. Oh, Bloom has his good points, but there's one thing he'll never do. His hand scrawled a dry pen signature beside his grog. I know, Davy Byrne said. Nothing in black and white, Nosey Flynn said. Paddy Leonard and Bantam Lyons came in. Tom Rockford followed, frowning, a plaining hand on his claret waistcoat. Day, Mr. Byrne. Day, gentlemen. They paused at the counter. Who's standing? Paddy Leonard asked. I'm sitting anyhow, Nosey Flynn answered. Well, what'll it be? Paddy Leonard asked. I'll take a stone ginger, Bantam Lyons said. How much? Paddy Leonard cried. Since when, for God's sake? What's yours, Tom? How is the main drainage? Nosey Flynn asked, sipping. For answer, Tom Rockford pressed his hand to his breastbone and hiccuped. Would I trouble you for a glass of fresh water, Mr. Byrne? He said. Certainly, sir. Paddy Leonard eyed his ale-mates. Lord love a duck, he said. Look at what I'm standing drinks to. Cold water and ginger pop. Two fellows that would suck whiskey off a sore leg. He has some bloody horse up his sleeve for the gold cup. A dead snip. Zinfandel, is it? Nosey Flynn asked. Tom Rockford spilt powder from a twisted paper into the water set before him. That cursed dyspepsia, he said before drinking. Bread soda is very good, Davy Byrne said. Tom Rockford nodded and drank. Is it Zinfandel? Say nothing, Bantam Lyons winked. I'm going to plunge 5 bob on my own. Tell us if you're worth your salt, and be damned to you, Paddy Leonard said. Who gave it to you? Mr. Bloom, on his way out, raised 3 fingers in greeting. So long, Nosey Flynn said. The others turned. That's the man now that gave it to me, Bantam Lyons whispered. Prut! Paddy Leonard said with scorn. Mr. Byrne, sir, we'll take 2 of your small Jamesons after that, and Stone Ginger, Davy Byrne added civilly. Eh, Paddy Leonard said, a sucking bottle for the baby. Mr. Bloom walked towards Dawson Street, his tongue brushing his teeth smooth. Something green it would have to be, spinach, say. Then with those Rontgen rays searchlight you could. At Duke Lane a ravenous terrier choked up a sick, knuckly cud on the cobblestones and lapped it up with new zest. Surfeit returned with thanks, having fully digested the contents, first sweet, then savoury. Mr. Bloom posted warily. Ruminants, his second course. Their upper jaw they move. Wonder if Tom Rockford will do anything with that invention of his, wasting time explaining it to Flynn's mouth. Lean people, long mouths. Ought to be a hall or a place where inventors could go in and invent free. Course, then you'd have all the cranks pestering. He hummed, prolonging in solemn echo the closes of the bars, Don Giovanni. E sinor teco invitasti. Feel better? Burgundy. Good pick-me-up. Who distilled first? Some chap in the blues. Dutch courage. That Killenly people in the National Library, now I must. Bare, clean, closed stools, waiting in the window of William Miller, plumber, turned back his thoughts. They could, and watch it all the way down. Swallow a pin, sometimes, come out of the ribs years after, to round the body, changing biliary duct, spleen, squirting liver, gastric juice, coils of intestines like pipes. But the poor buffer would have to stand all the time with his insides, entrails on show. Science. E sinor teco. What does that teco mean? Tonight, perhaps? Don Giovanni, thou hast me invited to come to supper tonight, to rum the rum-dum. Doesn't go properly. Keys. 2 months if I get Nanetti too. That'll be £2.10, about £2.8. 3 Hines owes me. 2.11. Prescott's Dye Works van over there. If I get Billy Prescott's ad, 2.15. 5 guineas about, on the pig's back. Could buy one of those silk petticoats for Molly, colour of her new garters. Today, not think. To the south then. What about English watering places? Brighton, Margate, Piers by moonlight, her voice floating out. Those lovely seaside girls. Against John Long's, a drowsing loafer lounged in heavy thought, gnawing a crusted knuckle. Handyman wants job, small wages, will eat anything. Mr. Bloom turned at Gray's confectioner's window of unbought tarts and passed the Reverend Thomas Conlon's bookstore. Why I left the Church of Rome. Bird's Nest. Women run him. They say they used to give pauper children soup to change to Protestants in the time of the potato blight. Society over the way Papa went to for the conversion of poor Jews. Same bait. Why we left the Church of Rome. A blind stripling stood tapping the curbstone with his slender cane. No tram in sight. Wants to cross. Do you want to cross? Mr. Bloom asked. The blind stripling did not answer. His wall face frowned weakly. He moved his head uncertainly. You're in Dawson Street, Mr. Bloom said. Molesworth Street is opposite. Do you want to cross? There's nothing in the way. The cane moved out trembling to the left. Mr. Bloom's eyes followed its line, and saw again the Dye Works van drawn up before Drago's, where I saw his brilliantined hair just when I was horse-drooping. driver in John Long's, slacking his drouth. "There's a van there," Mr. Bloom said, "but it's not moving. I'll see you across. Do you want to go to Molesworth Street?" "Yes," the stripling answered. "South Frederick Street." "Come," Mr. Bloom said. He touched the thin elbow gently, then took the limp-seeing hand to guide it forward. "Say something to him. Better not do the condescending. They mistrust what you tell them. Pass a common remark." "The rain kept off?" No answer. "Stains on his coat. Slobbers his food, I suppose. Tastes all different for him. Have to be spoon-fed first. Like a child's hand, his hand. Like Millie's was. Sensitive. Sizing me up, I dare say, from my hand. Wonder if he has a name. Van. Keep his cane clear of the horse's legs. Tired drudge get his doze. That's right. Clear. Behind a bull. In front of a horse. Thanks, sir. Knows I'm a man. Voice. Right now? First turn to the left." The blind stripling tapped the curbstone and went on his way, drawing his cane back, feeling again. Mr. Bloom walked behind the eyeless feet, a flat-cut suit of herringbone tweed. Poor young fellow! How on earth did he know that Van was there? Must have felt it. See things in their forehead, perhaps. Kind of sense of volume, weight or size of it, something blacker than the dark. Wonder, would he feel it if something was removed? Feel a gap? Queer idea of Dublin he must have, tapping his way round by the stones. Could he walk in a bee-line if he hadn't that cane? Bloodless, pious face, like a fellow going in to be a priest. Penrose, that was the chap's name. Look at all the things they can learn to do. Read with their fingers, tune pianos, or we are surprised they have any brains. Why we think a deformed person or a hunchback clever if he says something we might say. Of course, the other senses are more. Embroider, plait baskets. People ought to help. Work basket I could buy for Molly's birthday. Hate sewing. Might take an objection. Dark men, they call them. Sense of smell must be stronger, too. Smells on all sides, bunched together. Each street's different smell. Each person, too. Then the spring, the summer. Smells. Tastes. They say you can't taste wines with your eyes shut, or a cold in the head. Also, smoke in the dark, they say get no pleasure. And with a woman, for instance, more shameless not seeing. That girl passing the Stuart Institution, head in the air. Look at me. I have them all on. Must be strange not to see her. Kind of a form in his mind's eye. The voice, temperatures. When he touches her with his fingers, must almost see the lines, the curves. His hands on her hair, for instance. Say it was black, for instance. Good. We call it black. Then, passing over her white skin. Different feel, perhaps, feeling of white. Post office must answer. Fag today. Sent her a postal order, 2 shillings, half a crown. Accept my little present. Stationer's just here too. Wait, think over it. With the gentle finger he felt ever so slowly the hair combed back above his ears. Again, fibers of fine, fine straw. Then, gently his finger felt the skin of his right cheek. Downy hair there too, not smooth enough. The belly is the smoothest. No one about. There he goes into Frederick Street. Perhaps to Levinston's Dancing Academy piano. Might be settling my braces. Walking by Doran's public house, he slid his hand between his waistcoat and trousers, and, pulling aside his shirt gently, felt the slack fold of his belly. But I know it's whitey yellow. Want to try in the dark to see. He withdrew his hand and pulled his dress to. Poor fellow! Quite a boy. Terrible. Really terrible. What dreams would he have? Not seeing? Life a dream for him. Where is the justice being born that way? All those women and children excursion bean feast burned and drowned in New York. Holocaust. Karma, they call that transmigration for sins you did in a past life. The reincarnation met him pike hoses. Dear, dear, dear. Pity, of course, but somehow you can't cotton on to them some way. Sir Frederick Falconer going into the Freemasons' Hall, solemn as Troy, after his good lunch in Earlsfort Terrace, old legal cronies, cracking a magnum, tales of the bench and assizes and annals of the Bluecoat School. I sentence him to 10 years. I suppose he'd turn up his nose at that stuff I drank. Vintage wine for them. The year marked on a dusty bottle. Has his own ideas of justice in the recorder's court. Well-meaning old man. Police charge sheets crammed with cases, get their percentage manufacturing crime. Sends them to the right-about. The devil on moneylenders. Gave Reuben J. a great straw-calling. Now he's really what they call a dirty Jew. Power those judges have, crusty old toppers and wigs. There with a sore paw. And may the Lord have mercy on your soul. Hello, placard. Miris Bazaar. His Excellency, the Lord Lieutenant 16th. Today it is, in aid of funds for Mercer's Hospital. The Messiah was first given for that. Yes, Handel. What about going out there, Ballsbridge? Drop in on Keys. No use sticking to him like a leech. Wear out my welcome. Sure to know someone on the gate. Mr. Bloom came to Kildare Street. First I must library. Straw hat and sunlight, tan shoes. Turned up trousers, it is. His heart quopped softly. To the right, museum. Goddesses. He swerved to the right. Is it? Almost certain. Won't look. Wine in my face. Why did I? Too heady. Yes, it is. The walk. Not see. Get on. Making for the museum gate with long, windy steps, he lifted his eyes. Handsome building, Sir Thomas Deane designed. Not following me? Didn't see me, perhaps. Light in his eyes. The flutter of his breath came forth in short sighs. Quick, cold statues. Quiet there. Safe in a minute. No, didn't see me. After 2, just at the gate. My heart! His eyes, beating, looked steadfastly at cream curves of stone. Sir Thomas Deane was the Greek architecture. Look for something, aye. His hasty hand went quick into a pocket. Took out, read, unfolded, Agendath Nitem. Where did I? Busy looking, he thrust back quick Agendath. Afternoon, she said. I am looking for that. Yes, that. Try all pockets. Hanker, Freeman, where did I? Ah, yes, trousers, potato, purse. Where? Hurry, walk quietly, moment more, my heart. His hand looking for the where did I put, found in his hip pocket, soap lotion, have to call, tepid paper stuck. Ah, soap, there, aye, yes, gate. Safe!